Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to another weekly recap. Well, I didn't think this was ever going to happen, but just this morning, the official xeric client, specifically the Steam client, has received a big batch of new updates, so usability updates, quality of life, and just features that we have in RuneLite that we take for granted. Some of those are now going to be on the Steam client. Some players have been waiting for these features for years now, pretty well since the game started. So yeah, like 7 or 8 years in the making. So today we're going to be looking at the first batch of changes that are now live. You can go use them right now in the Steam client, as well as I'll be covering some of the future changes they plan on making to the client, as well as anything else interesting in the old school RuneScape community this week. As always, if you do enjoy these videos, always appreciate it. If you leave a like, it really does help my video get recommended to other people. Thanks a lot, guys, and let's get started. Alright, so let's start off by looking at what actually changed today. What new features are you able to now use on the official xeric client? Now, just to clarify here once again, this is only coming to the Steam client, the C++ version. However, all of these features will also eventually make it to mobile as well, which is also very exciting. Now, while all of the features are already in RuneLite, this is still a really good step in the right direction for a couple of different reasons. First up, I mean, xeric should just have a modern and playable client in 2021, so that's just something that they probably should have done a while ago. 2, the information that we're going to be receiving from those plugins are going to be a lot more accurate on the official xeric version. They have direct access to all of the backend data, and while RuneLite has done a very good job of being reasonably accurate, there are still some discrepancies in actually quite a few of these plugins. And the best part about all of this is they are working still with third-party clients. I mean, they're not going to straight up ban RuneLite. They're going to be able to coexist, and maybe they can work together to some degree to help both clients. And because RuneLite is pretty much a free open source passion project, I mean, they're not going to be butting heads here. I mean, RuneLite is like Batman. I mean, they don't really want to be RuneLite. They just had to because Gotham City wouldn't clean up all their crime. Now, the first major change to the Steam client is we now have access to your opponent's information as a heads-up display. Now, this is a good example of where there sometimes was some misinformation, and that's not to throw any shade at RuneLite. They were doing the absolute best with the information that they had available, but sometimes the total hit points or their current hit points were just not correct. However, now that we have an official client version, they can probably just phase out the RuneLite plugin and just incorporate this one instead. So for regular enemies, there's a top left interface that will display the HP and the monster name. However, if you're fighting a boss, that will be replaced with a boss HP bar, which will have more factors to keep an eye on. For example, the bosses in the Chambers of Xeric will have HP threshold indicators for vanguards, and the Nightmare has both the shield and HP values. So awesome stuff there. Now the next plugin that has been added is a buff bar. So this will keep track of different buffs that you have, mainly from potions. Now keep in mind there will be a toggle for quite a few of these plugins. However, the buff bar plugin will include both how much you have been buffed by and what the remaining time is on your potion. Now another plugin that is now available is fishing spot indicators. So this plugin is very similar to the RuneLite version. It'll highlight the fishing spot as well as place a HUD over it to show what you can fish with it and also what equipment you need to fish it. So another awesome addition to the Steam client is tile markers. Most of you will already know what tile markers do, and they'll work exactly the same way as in RuneLite. You just hold shift, right click on the location, and click mark tile. Okay, a really big one here, and one that actually might make the Steam client meta in this very specific purpose, is a Chambers of Xeric helper. Now, this one is actually better than the RuneLite client, and mainly because xeric, of course, has access to all of the backend information. So the Chambers of Xeric helper is essentially a Chambers of Xeric scouter, so whenever you join a raid in the top left corner, it will show you the entire layout of the raid, and this is different than the RuneLite client in one major way. There are no unknown categories. Currently on RuneLite, when you join, it could say unknown puzzle room, unknown combat room, and there's a pretty big variety of unknown information. However, if you are using the Steam client, it will show you all of the rooms every single time, no guessing. Obviously, there's a huge amount of disparities between the base client and RuneLite. However, this is one of the bigger ones that give you a tangible and notable advantage. So I'm really glad they included that in the first batch of changes. Okay, so next up here we have mouse over tooltips. A plugin so integral, I can't believe the base client didn't have it. Just hovering over something would show you one of the main options. I forgot that was even a feature. I thought that was just part of the base client, but apparently it's not. Well, now it is, I suppose, but so yeah, I'm glad we got that one. And finally here, there are a few chat related options. You can now include timestamps within your chat. as well as now your chat history is kept for 15 minutes after you log out, and if you log back in within that time, you can still see all of it. Now there's a few other minor changes here at the bottom. Now one big one is on desktop, you're now able to control FPS limiting. So if you are trying to reduce the load that RuneScape is taking on your PC, you can reduce it down to 15 FPS, 20 FPS, 30 FPS, 60 FPS, or you can just have it uncapped. So that is it for all of the client changes in the first batch. Very exciting stuff. So if you were thinking of trying out the Steam client, this is a great time to try it out. Obviously, they are still missing quite a bit that is in RuneLite. However, with a few more batches of changes, I think the Steam client could be reasonably playable for most players. Now, these features are just part of the core feature set for Milestone number 1. And now, as far as stuff they've mentioned they'd like to add to the client in the future milestones will contain things like ground item identifiers, loot trackers, high score panels, bank tags, and a lot more. For me to switch over entirely, they would definitely need to add in ground items, probably some menu entry swapper parts too, but you know what, that's a lot of good stuff, and really just a giant thank you to xeric for finally making these updates. Now that is not it. Today we also received some changes to both A Kingdom Divided, Theater of Blood, and even clans. Now today there's been one major change to one of the actual spells, however there are some proposed changes that will be coming pretty soon. Now first appeared the Dark Lure spell has been changed a bit. I'm pretty sure the way it worked now is if you cast Dark Lure on an enemy, it would remain lured to that person like indefinitely or for a long time, and no one else would be able to cast Dark Lure on it. However now, lured implings will follow the player in a 2x2 area for 6 seconds, after which they'll go back to the regular wandering. This will make the spell more useful in this activity and alleviate some of the frustrations being expressed by players. Now on top of that, they made a few other changes to some other things to do with the Kingdom Divided. You're now able to add an X quantity to your Ash Sanctifier, so it won't take all of your death runes now. Fiendish and Vile Ashes have been added to free-to-play. That's pretty exciting, as well as Zalcana will now drop Infernal Ashes on death. The damage that Thralls do will now give you appropriate amounts of points within the Chambers of Xeric. And now Boars will now drop raw boar meat. Alright. Now, on top of the actual changes that came out in today's game update, yesterday xeric put forward a few future changes they'd like to make to A Kingdom Divided. Now, first appeared, they think the Ash Sanctifier provides a little bit too much value per death rune that you put in. Currently, for every death rune you put in, you would get back 100 charges. However, they would like to change it to be every 10 death runes would give you 100 charges. Or suppose one death rune gives you 10 charges. Kind of a weird way to say that. Essentially, they'd be making the Ash Sanctifier 10 times more expensive. Now, one of the major gripes that a lot of players have had with the spellbook are that the Demon Bane spells feel a bit underwhelming, and that is mainly because a lot of demons have very high magical defenses. So currently what they'd like to do is change how Mark of Darkness and the Demon Bane spells work a bit. Currently the accuracy is 25% with Mark of Darkness, however they would like to change it so that the base accuracy without the Mark of Darkness is actually 20%, and if you do cast Mark of Darkness, it would bump it up to 40%. Now that demons only drop ashes, some tasks in the Catacombs of Karen such as Hellhounds, Mutated Bloodvelds, etc. no longer provide passive prayer restoration, as they don't work at the Bone Crusher anymore. Now the best solution that xeric is looking to go with is just to have Bloodvelds and Hellhounds drop both ashes and bones. Not ideal from a lore perspective, however it would be a good compromise. Now one other change they'd be looking to make is to change how Demonic Offering works. They'll be removing the ability for monsters to interrupt Demonic Offering, and I imagine the other offering spell as well. They could also look at shortening the animations a bit as well and adding a cooldown to the spell to preserve the experience rates that were pulled when outside of combat. And that's pretty much it for some of the more important changes that they might make to A Kingdom Divided in the near future. Now today we've also received a fairly notable update to clans, one I'm pretty excited for. Now something I think is really awesome is clans can now choose to receive automatic broadcasts when one of their members do any of the following activities. First up, obtain valuable loot. So for example, if someone gets a God Wars unique drop on their trip, that could be broadcasted to the clan chat channel. And you're also able to change the value at which the notification will go out. So you can set it to something reasonable like 5 mil or 1 mil. Or you could change it down to something a little bit lower. Maybe not a great idea though. Other activities that could send out a broadcast would be whenever you obtain a pet, whenever you complete a quest, whenever you reach a certain milestone skill level, or whenever you join or leave the clan. So a lot of really fun and useful features here. I think having a broadcast when someone joins is really nice. That way people know that someone has joined. They don't just sneak in there unannounced. Now on top of that, if you are actively recruiting clan members in the world, it will now tell you when an application has been received or withdrawn. Now, a few other minor changes here is you can now set Barbarian Assault as one of the social activities for your clans to do as an event. There's also been a few changes to some of the titles and the rank icons. Peon has now been renamed to Pawn for some reason. There's a new rank Helper, which is just now the old smiley face icon. You can now give people a smiley face icon. As well as some of the metal bars in the Ruby ranks has had their icons and colors changed slightly. Now, as far as what features they're working on for future releases, they want to add in the ability to opt out from your clan channel without actually leaving the clan for privacy reasons. The option to left-click attack a member of your clan for a friendly battle. That's pretty awesome. And new ways to sort the clan list by various criteria beyond just alphabetically. And that's it for all of the major updates. There's a few other things at the bottom here, notably those who are running RuneScape on less than ideal computers. The Mushroom Meadows have been optimized to improve performance a bit. You know, RuneScape is pretty graphically intensive. And finally here, the most important update of the week by far. Now when you're removing the Hosidius plows for the favor, if someone is in front of you, you will just literally push them out of the way. And that's pretty much it for content updates today. So I woke up this morning and I was just so excited to try out the new Steam client. I just wanted to make my update video today. I'm going to try to play the entire day on the Steam client. If they can develop the Steam client to be even half as good as RuneLite, I think a lot of players will switch over to use it. That will bump up our player counts in Steam and will help market our game to many other players who maybe haven't tried it before. Not to mention that Jagex will probably be a little more motivated to develop it further if they see some initial success. So I'm going to give it a try at least. Anyway guys, that is going to be it for the weekly recap. I hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next week. Now before I go here, I'm going to give a massive thank you to all of my members over on YouTube. A huge thank you to Wolf the Hunt, Colin Corley, Timothy Chen, Guy Fox, Ocelot, and Kush Patel for all being subscribed at the Dragon tier. As always, you guys are awesome. Also a massive thank you to Hunter Durand, Lord Dojin, All Things Gaming, Yo-Yo Sub 89, Need My Pills, Birdbot, and Base Titch for all being subscribed at the RuneLite tier. Thank you guys so much. As always, if you guys are looking for another way to support the channel, becoming a YouTube member is an awesome way to do so. You can get access to my video release schedule, get immortalized in all of my future videos, and of course, get a custom role in my Discord server. Thanks again, and I will see you next time.